And that report from Pádraig O'Driscoll. Now to our panel. Father Richard Gibbons is the parish priest of Knock. Louise Hall is a pilgrim and an author of the book Medjegorje and Me. Michael Nugent is the chairman of Atheist Ireland. And Dr Michael Moran is on the International Medical Committee of Lourdes. They decide on miracles. Can I come to you first, sure. Dr Moran? How do you decide on a miracle, or is it a process of elimination?
No, absolutely not. The evidence first sort of comes from the person presenting themselves as a cure, and a lot of people don't do that first step. But when a case is open, there's roughly about one per week in each year still where people claim to have been cured. Then a dossier is opened and information is sought on, first of all, the illness and the events, and a lot of them are closed down quite early because the criteria that we apply are so strict. It goes back to a time in the church before Lourdes existed, so the criteria were there first, and they're called the Lambertini criteria, where it has to be a serious illness, that the illness has to go away permanently, it must be a sudden change, the person can't have had treatment for the illness in that recent time. So there's loads of criteria that have to be met, which is why you end up with 1% of the people who claim to have been cured actually having a verifiable, inexplicable cure as per our committee.
And have you as a medical doctor seen miracles, seen cures?
I haven't. I've seen people who have been cured. Yeah. I've seen 3 of the people who've been cured at Lourdes, within recent times. Apart from that, there's the other element of Lourdes that's so important that was highlighted in the video about Knock as well, where there's more to pilgrimage than that, and people don't go sort of holding God to ransom, demanding to be cured. There's lots of people who may just get an extra lease of life, a change in attitude, certainly spiritual release from emotional problems. And I've seen a lot of people who have quite terminal and devastating diagnoses live for longer than one would expect because of a trip to Lourdes that's given them certainly more hope. But I mean, in terms of the medical cures, yes, I have seen the evidence for them and have met the people and have spoken to them about the importance of it to them.
And would you talk to medical students about?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually involved in a module in Queen's University where we do talk to medical students. It's about spirituality and healing. And that's, I've been brought on board now as a guest sort of teacher with them. But it's of interest really to anybody, and anyone who is interested can visit the medical bureau and see X-rays and files, and it's all there to be interrogated.
How long does it take to, insofar as you can say?
Absolutely years. It must be more than about 5 to 10 years. What you need to establish is that the illness doesn't come back again. So that's really important to us as a body of medical professionals. It's of no interest to us as a body if Lourdes has 1,000 miracles a year or 1 or less than 1. So what we want to do is make sure that the evidence is there so that their skeptics can be reassured, and also just to put a bit of formality to it, because in these things it's hard to prove. So what we're doing with the medical committee is if people do have proof and they want it to be seen by the church and by the wider world, we'll help them verify it. Michael,
beside you, another Michael, you're throwing your eyes up to heaven. I don't know if you do throw your eyes up to heaven, to the ceiling anyway. Michael, what do you think of this argument, the medical doctor saying there are miracles?
Well, if you look at Lourdes, there have been about 200 million people have travelled to Lourdes over the years, 69 recognised miracles, so you've about 1 in 3 million chance of being cured. That's considerably less than just the natural rates of spontaneous remission from cancer, say. 90% of the people supposedly cured are women for some reason. There have been 1 cure in the last 25 years, so you have a better chance of dying at Lourdes than being cured for the last 25 years. The Pope Benedict in 2008 announced free plenary indulgences for anybody who visited Lourdes during 2008 that would get them out of purgatory and into heaven quicker if they travelled to Lourdes. Coincidentally, just after they had launched Vatican Airlines, which was bringing people on pilgrimages to Lourdes. And then you get people coming away from these bringing holy water, which has been shown by a recent study in the University of Vienna to be harmful, and that infections of patients in hospitals throughout Europe have been traced back to holy water from Lourdes, and over 86% of holy water from springs and churches around Europe has been found to be contaminated with the equivalent of fecal matter.
Have you been to Lourdes? Would you go?
I haven't. I've no reason to go.
Have you travelled in Ireland? Have you travelled through Knock, for example?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay.
No.
And would you might in the course of your...
I might in the course of it, of just if I'm travelling around the country, but I wouldn't be doing it in order to get a miracle.
Father Richard Gibbons, what would Michael see in Knock that might dilute, we stick with the water phrases, to dilute his feelings? We won't say scepticism, because he's well argued in there, his feelings about these places.
Well, first of all, I'd like to offer an invitation to you, Michael, that you can come to Knock at any time. We're renowned for our hospitality there, so I offer that to you genuinely. You have to really come and experience these places. It's not a matter of really statistics and those kind of elements, although they are important, and we deal with procedures and all the rest of it. This is something more than that. We wouldn't be talking about Lourdes or Knock if something unusual didn't happen in the first place. And this is simply dealing with people's innate longing to simply encounter something that is more than any of us. People who are Catholic come to Knock, obviously, but even people who aren't Catholic. We have very good friendly relations with the Muslim community in Ballyhonus, and a number of Muslims come to Knock just simply even to walk the place. And it's those distinct elements, I think, that you pointed out initially. The elements of prayer, of peace, of tranquility.
You didn't mention miracles.
I didn't mention miracles? No, I didn't. Well, I didn't mention miracles in particular, but we are...
Is it a feature of Knock?
It's, well, when we talk about miracles per se, and I think this is something that Lourdes has dealt with quite extensively, I'm not waiting around the corner waiting to see if a miracle is going to happen to somebody. What really happens in terms of Knock is simply people's spirituality coming out, is simply the fact that when people come to Knock, they get something from it that brings them back into contact with God again. And the engine room of Knock is the Chapel of Reconciliation, is the confessional. That's the engine room of Knock. Roughly on average, we took a number, just maybe linking in statistics, we took an estimate or a count of the number of people that go to confessions on average during the week. It estimates at about 4,000 people per week going to confession. These are people that have been away for a long number of years.
Let me ask Louise. Louise, what is different about these places of pilgrimage? You were a follower, you've been to Medjegorje from an early age. What is the difference to you of those places?
As Father Richard said, you have to really go and experience it for yourself. I've spoken to so many pilgrims over the past 2 years, and one of them said to me, if he could just put it in a bottle and bring it home and give it to someone.
What would it be? Tell us. We all can't go.
Well,
what would it be?
people are going for many different reasons, for a starter. Some are just going out of curiosity. Some are going to pray for a sick relative or friend. Some are going in thanksgiving. And I think some people are searching, and they're going to try and reawaken a lost spirituality that they once had. And they're really looking for something and searching, and they're finding it over there.
But why go to Knock, Lourdes, Medjegorje? You can get that in Clarendon Street. You can get it at the bottom of the Drumcondra Road.
Well, I think with Medjegorje anyway, it's very current, because these apparitions that started on the 24th of June 1981 are allegedly still happening today. So it's very current. And you know, I think over there you have this focus on the church and the sacraments, and people go there to get close to God again and to experience that.
There's another thing that you do find in those places, which is not only the apparitions, but you get things like people saying the sun is dancing in the sky. Now, no doubt something is happening there, but if the sun was dancing in the sky, everybody in the world would see it. So whatever is happening, it's happening inside people's heads. It's not happening to the actual sun. And in the same way as, for example, in Surah 54, Muhammad is supposed to have split the moon in two. You know, I doubt that many Catholics who believe that the sun is dancing in the sky in Medjugorje also believe that Muhammad split the moon in two. So people are very capable of noticing what is wrong with miracles in other religions, but not in their own.
Dr. Moran, do you not find that Michael's almost scientific arguments? You're a scientist, you're a medic.
Of course, and I mean, and if we're going to talk about details as well, in the terms of the Vatican Airlines thing, there isn't an airline that I'm aware of called that, and also if it was flying, it would only be going between Rome and Lourdes, which wouldn't be a lot of fitful.
What it was is it was.
Okay, we won't get bogged down
to go to the thing that you said about what's special about these places, because that's so crucial. I mean, if you could pick somewhere like Connemara in Ireland and just say, well, it's a beautiful place and let's send hundreds of people there all the time and to be nice to each other and the goodness of humanity is enough. And that's a conversation I had with an atheist who's a scientist, as well as myself being a scientist. And I came to the conclusion that there has to be something else added to it, and that's where the divine comes in, because you know, you can't just simply make these places up, and as you say, if you could bottle it you would, but you can't. It's an experience and it's a feeling, and it's something that's so important to people at very important times in their lives.
Do you believe Muhammad split the moon in two?
I don't really have much of a background in Islam, to be honest, so I don't know that I can answer that.
Sorry, Joe, can I just bring it back?
Richard,
I think the encounter with any particular shrine, or especially Lourdes or Fatima or Knock, is the encounter with the divine. The encounter with something that, as a historical fact, something unusual or supernatural happened. That's what maintains these as unique places of pilgrimage.
And you believe that totally?
I believe that
about
totally,
the
yes.
visionaries
I
and
do,
what
yes,
they
yeah.
saw.
I do,
Okay,
yeah.
there's no doubt.
There's no doubt, because a lot of these things, like it's not that the impression is given sometimes that the Catholic Church is waiting for a miracle or an apparition to happen in some place in the world, and we immediately come out and say, that's great, let's go with it.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of work, criteria, investigation, all of that into these elements.
Well, I've been, for a number of reasons, I've been to Lourdes, Lourdes, I visited Fatima and Knock, and one of the things that struck me about the place was they're a great leveler. I just thought everyone seemed to be on the one level. Now, that's nothing to do with miracles. Let me bring in some people in the audience. We have Dr. Hemant Kumar. Dr. Kumar, good afternoon. The Ganges, you were born close to the River Ganges as a member of the Hindu religion. What does the Ganges mean to you?
Yes, thanks very much, Joe. Like, I was born in a place known as Haridwar, which is in the northern part of the country, where the river Ganges come into the Gangetic plain from the Himalayas after a journey of 253 kilometers. Well, there are some spiritual stories according to the scriptures that there was one king known as Bhagirath, and he had 60,000 ancestors who was not getting salvation. And Bhagirath brought Ganges to the earth to get moksha or salvation for those ancestors, and then for the betterment for the human life. And then Ganges traveled from Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal, about 1,500 miles down, and then it gives like a lot of water to the farmers and everywhere. So it provides a lot of food to the whole humanity.
But as a Hindu, when you immerse yourself in the River Ganges, what is the feeling? What is the effect?
When we go to River Ganges, first of all, like, we want to get more feeling of purity in our life. Like, we have three types of qualities in the life: the pure, the egoistic, and the dull. So we always want to have more purity in our life, in our souls. So one is the physical purity, and other one is the inner purity of the soul. So we get that type of energy there. And most of the people who are coming there to near in Ganges in Haridwar for taking a holy bath, they all have a positive energy. So if anybody goes there, you will feel that energy in the air.
Okay. Does every Hindu have to go to the Ganges? Is it obligatory?
Yeah, no. There is no religious compulsion to go to Ganges, but everybody wishes to do that.
Okay, let me go in the row behind you there, Mariam Nasir Burki. Mariam, thank you, and you're very welcome. You've been to Mecca, yes, obviously, as a Muslim. What is the effect, the impact, the meaning of Mecca to you?
Hajj, basically, that pilgrimage is known as Hajj, and it's obligatory on every adult Muslim man and woman alike. And we follow the footsteps of Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon them both. And it's a spiritual journey, it's an act of worship. It brings us back to the basics. We leave our luxuries behind, and we are all equal in the eyes of God. And we do the same rituals. There's no difference between man and women in doing all the rituals, and there's no difference between poor and rich, privileged or underprivileged. We are all together in the. We are all together doing the same rituals and asking for forgiveness and guidance. It makes us feel it's about equality and humbleness, unity. For my personal reason, I believe that it's a reminder for me for the day of judgment, when all the humans will be brought back to life. All the creations will be brought back to life, and then we'll be answerable for our own deeds.
Okay, Elizabeth beside you. Elizabeth, how are you?
Fine, Joe.
Did you convert?
I did indeed, Joe.
And was that a long time ago?
Yes, approximately 30 years
Okay.
now.
Have you been, for example, you've been to Mecca, have you?
I have indeed,
Okay.
yes.
Have you been to any of the other pilgrimage sites before you come? Have you been to Knock, for
I
example?
have been to Knock, and I must admit, it was when I was a Muslim I went to Knock.
Okay.
And I will concur with Father Richard because it is a beautiful place, and I believe there's a great sense of spirituality and peace and calm, and that would be, I believe, induced by people of faith. That because when I ventured then and I went on the Hajj pilgrimage, it was ever so more awesome for me, and I believe there was a great energy I got when I arrived in Mecca and amongst 3 million people worshipping the one God. And my friend Rawa earlier was talking to me outside, and she said something beautiful which I'm going to steal from her as a Muslim. But when we were on Hajj, like the people of every nation, all languages, and we're all there joined together for one cause. And yet we all speak different languages. And she was mentioning the Chinese and the Turkish, and we're all there. And yet when it comes to prayer and they call Allahu Akbar, everybody understands that and goes Allahu Akbar. So it's a wonderful, wonderful spiritual journey. And it just gave me great energy and great belief in one God. And when I stood on Mount Arafah, which is the epitome of the Hajj pilgrimage, and to look upon a sea of people covering the mount and other mounts alongside it, and everybody had their hands raised looking for forgiveness, I knew he was a God of forgiveness, and I believed that he, once I carried out this pilgrimage, had forgiven me, inshallah.
And is it an unfair question, Elizabeth, I don't want to do a TripAdvisor on this, but to compare Knock and Mecca, is it just two completely different meanings?
Two completely different. I don't know about meanings because I don't want to judge one from another. But can I just take one moment?
Yes.
I don't want to turn it into a theological debate, but I must correct our friend Michael Nugent, who mentioned earlier that Islam says Muhammad supposedly has split the moon. There is no such thing in Islam. It was mentioned to us that the moon was split, and it's God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that mentioned it to us. And it's not, we don't pray or worship Muhammad. So just to clarify
to get a quick, I'll come back to that point, just to get a quick indication from the audience, how many people have been on a pilgrimage to any of these places? Paul Eilish, you haven't, I noticed.
Well, no, not a pilgrimage.
Okay.
Retreats, but not a pilgrimage.
Okay. Paul Collins, beside you there, I don't know whether you're just back off the Camino, but and the Camino is the one everyone's talking about in the last few years.
Yeah, I came back about a month ago, Joe. I was 60 during the summer, and I wanted to just step back and just think about things a bit. And I'm out of my depth with these people talking about spiritual pilgrimages and things like that. I just wanted to think, one of the things about the Camino is, like the lady says here about the Hajj, things are simplified and very basic. Everything is like an anti-holiday. You don't go for the sun or hotels or nights out and things like that. I wanted to do the Camino from the bottom up. I stayed in albergues, hostels. In the hostels you've got anything from 15, 50, 90 up to 160 people in one room. And you're in bunk beds less than 2 foot apart. Someone said, Joe, on a sponsored walk I was on in the Camino for the Irish guide dogs, the Camino, he said, isn't all the different roads that come from different places in Spain to Santiago. The Camino is a journey into yourself, and that certainly resonated with me.
So you did 5 weeks on your own as such. I know you meet people, but you were on your own. And the difference, is that at the difference at the end, Paul?
Yeah, it's different from the other pilgrimage that people mention in that it's very long, Joe. It's I started in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in the French Pyrenees and walked 780 kilometres to Santiago, and then another 130
but were you
to the coast.
Were you a different person at the end of it? I know it's a glib way of putting it.
I don't think so in that sense, Joe, but you do step back from our modern life, which is very hectic and busy, and you're very close to the natural world that we live in. And for me, that and the people I met along the Camino were really the Camino for me.
Your son is beside you there, Gareth. What was your dad different when he came back? Was he different?
Ever so slightly. He lost a couple of pounds, which is great.
Okay, but have you noticed a difference in it?
To be honest, no. You know, we're very proud of him. He was physically number one. You know, 903 kilometres isn't an easy feat. So.
Did you miss him?
Oh, we did, of course. Yeah.
Okay. But it did. Do you feel it? Obviously, he talks about it a lot. He's obviously very moved by it.
Yeah.
Even talking to Paul earlier, he's very moved by it. Would you be tempted to do it?
Yeah, I certainly would. He showed me all the photos on the iPad, and I was very impressed. So it's something I could do in a few years.
And the discussion now generally, and the issues. Would you knock? Given the points that Richard has made, which is that there is a sense of community, a sense of people being on the one level, a sense of openness, would you not?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that religion brings that are beneficial in terms of that sense of community, a sense of meaning, absorption in activities that are important to you. But those are things that are human. They're not religious. They're things that atheists also experience. And so the idea that these things are inherently religious is one of the things that religion has managed to kind of con people a little bit about, in the same way as they've created the impression that morality comes from religion. These are all just human
Well, are the miracles,
aspects.
okay, you use the word con, are the miracles a con?
Of course they are, yeah. I mean, at best, at absolute best, what we can say is there are things that have happened and we can't explain them. Now, moving beyond that into saying, and therefore the explanation is God, that's where the con comes in.
But Louise, the miracles are still happening, and the visions are still happening in Medjegorje where you
and you know, just like
What do you think
Lourdes,
of Michael's point that it's a
well,
con?
just like Lourdes in Medjegorje, the parish, they document these physical healings. And one woman that springs to mind is a lady called Colleen Willard from the US. She had an inoperable brain tumour. She had MS, she had lupus, she had several other very serious illnesses. And she went over to Medjugorje in a wheelchair with her husband. Now, she wasn't going looking for a cure. She admits that herself. But she went over and she met with one of the visionaries who was giving a talk outside her home. And the visionary lay her hands on her and prayed with her. And she could feel this tremendous heat go through her. After that, she went to English Mass in the Church of St. James. And once she received the Eucharist, again, she felt this heat go through her. And she stood up when she got out of her wheelchair and she walked. Now, just to point out something about that, Joe, she was under the care of the Mayo Clinic in the US, which is a very well-known and renowned hospital. And when she went to the parish priest to tell him what had happened, he said, go home, good advice, and go to your doctor. She went back to the Mayo Clinic. She had all the tests done and they found no traces of tumours.
And Mick's 12-word response to that is...
Well, why don't you say that God gave her the illnesses? You know, why do you only attribute the bits that you like to God and not attribute the bits that you don't like to God?
And if you use that argument, then I wouldn't go to work every day, because as a doctor, you know, we should just leave everything to God. And
No, we should do the opposite. What we should do is we should do our best to increase the amount of well-being in the world, minimise the amount of suffering in the world, regardless of whether we believe that comes from God or from natural evolution.
But it is a difference of belief where we both come from different angles, and I think there's room for both opinions, and equally Islam and Hinduism. I mean, it seems like we have more in common than we have apart.
Of course there is, yeah, but independently of what we believe, there is a truth. Either a God exists or a God doesn't exist, factually, irrespective of what we believe. And so all that we can do is do our best to make the world a little bit better every day, irrespective of what we believe about
that. We would do that, though, but we would say that as people of faith, we would say we're attributing goodness to God. You know.
But why don't you attribute the badness to God? Why when a plane crashes and somebody survives, it's a miracle? Why aren't the 99 people that died also attributed to God?
I think as well, life is one big mystery. We can't explain everything that's going on. We're constantly learning, as in the science field, the medical field. Why not spiritually as well?
But you are trying to put an explanation on it by saying it's God. I'm saying these things happen, I don't know. I'm saying, well, and I'm happy to say I don't know. But just because we don't know doesn't mean that we can add in an explanation by saying that it's God.
Well, it comes down to the fact that in the vast, huge history of humanity, that the greatest majority, in terms of what people believe, put something down to something beyond ourselves physically here and beyond blood and flesh and bone. That there is some other dimension to the human being that calls out from within all of us to something beyond. That, I suppose, death, as they say, is the great leveller. It's sort of looking towards maybe our finality, if you like, that makes us refocus again. And I think in terms of maybe even centres for spirituality, Michael, be it Knock or Lourdes or the Ganges or even Mecca itself, it's that great interaction with people.
Okay, two
that find
people with their hands up. That lady, Elizabeth again, yes.
And just in response to Michael again, and it's just, but we, and I'm saying we in the term of Muslim, and I hope everybody else of faith believe in fate and destiny if we are believers. And we believe all comes from God. And if He gives us hardships, we welcome them and we work our way through Him. If we get better, it's with His blessing. If we move on, it's our fate and destiny. And I just want to say, all from God.
Okay, Father Richard Gibbons, Knock is moving on. There's major plans.
There's a lot of plans for Knock. There is, yeah. It's to meet the needs of the people that are coming to Knock, and also we'll have
each year. 1.5 million a year.
That's what has been reported. Yes. The plan and the project will be going public on that very shortly, announcing what we're going to do and what's happening in Knock itself. But again, it's to meet the vast numbers of people that are coming there and give them a greater experience of God, a greater encounter.
And Mick, when you go to Knock, you can't drink the water because Knock is a Mayo, not Roscommon, so the water is drinkable. Thanks, that's it for this week. I'd like to thank all of my guests, Eilish O'Carroll, or Winnie McGugan from Mrs Brown's Boys, as we know her, Father Richard Gibbons, author Louise Hall, Michael Nugent and Dr Michael Moran. Thanks also to our studio audience, and most of all I'd like to thank all of you at home for watching. Remember, Live Line Monday to Friday on RTE Radio 1, and next week on Spirit Level we'll be asking the enduring question, can there ever be such a thing as a just war? Until next Sunday, good afternoon.